give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What's going on, NBA draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Ball Street, the Draftdaq NBA Draft Podcast. My name is Corey Tulaba, and I am here a little different today. A little bit of a curveball. Garbage time Albert Gim had to take the week off for load management. So we have next man up, the Tom Thibodeau approach, backcourt violation, the Minister of Madness. I don't know. I made the meme general at No Ceilings, Tyler Rucker, stepping in for Albert this week. Tyler.
Yeah, it's got to feel good getting Michael Jordan off the bench. I know I've used that joke once before, but it never gets old. So thank you, Albert, for the load management, because I'm excited to be back and talking hoops with you, Corey. It's been a minute. We've been busy.
We've been busy. You know, we've been talking behind the scenes every day, building this No Ceilings platform, along with the crew, who's just been doing a phenomenal job. Yes. I mean, the writing recently has just been, off the charts, especially if you're a fan of the draft and you've been following along. And now that March Madness is over, things are really now is when the madness starts. It's not March, it's April. It's April madness for us in the draft world. So I'm excited to do this episode because this is a guy that I just have so many feelings on. So we're talking about Ohio State's EJ Liddell, forward, big man, 21 years old right now, 21 years old on draft night, 6'7", 240, reported 7-foot wingspan, put up a staggering 19.4 points per game, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists to 2.4 turnovers, 2.6 blocks, and a half a steal this season, shooting 49% from the field, 37.4% from downtown, 76.5% from the line, true shooting percentage of nearly 60, a PER of 30.5. I mean, just an absolutely dominant year at Ohio State. And this is a guy, looking at his stock price preseason, was not on the draft radar, did not make the first appearance of the Draftdaq that we released on No Ceilings in November, didn't make an appearance on the Draftdaq top 30 until January, when he came in at number 30. So this is a guy that even early in the year didn't necessarily have that momentum going. Currently, ESPN has him at 21. The Athletic has him at 25. Tankathon has him at 20. Basketball News at 22. Bleacher Report at 24. The Ringer at 20. No Ceilings, we had him at 21 on the big board we just released earlier last week. Was it last week? This week? I don't know. Time is flying. That's an average stock price of 21.8 for EJ Liddell. So from off the radar completely to, potentially a top 20 guy. Tyler, I ask you, is EJ Liddell's stock price too high, too low, or just right at 21.8?
I'm like you, Corey. You hinted it perfectly. I have a lot of feelings about EJ Liddell, and they keep getting very confusing the more I watch them, and it's usually a lot of pluses. I would say it's a little low right now, because I just am sort of convinced that this is going to be a guy that keeps creeping up some draft boards. He might flirt with the late lottery, late teens. I can just really see some team in that range being really, sold on the idea of his skill set, especially when it comes I know we're going to talk in depth about him, but he's got really, really intriguing two-way versatility. And there's some parts of his game that jumped at me that I wasn't expecting when I did a deep dive on him. So yeah, I would probably say a little low. But that's just, my personal big board. I think I had him around 15, just because I'm really buying into the idea of some team being we need this floor spacing two-way forward that could maybe slide in next to if a team has a center. I know we're going to talk in depth, so I'm not trying to spoil too much in the first couple minutes, but I really do see a strong asset at the next level. So I'm intrigued to talk to you about EJ. I feel like this is one guy me and you haven't really discussed, so this is perfect timing.
Yeah, not a ton a discussion on him because he's on the surface, he's not this like super flashy prospect that I think is like, you go on draft Twitter and there are like these waves and flashes and trends of guys that get hot. And he's a guy that like had this really steady production the whole year. And just, I feel like he never had that wave of hype.
Right.
Maybe it's because he's a little older. I don't know. But I agree. I think it's probably too low. And when we look back on the draft, we're going to be like, why was this guy in the 20s? Because I think he's one of the safer players in the draft to actually be like a rotation guy down the line. Now, having said that, like I went and looked at my latest board and, before I really dove back into his film. And I had him at, I think, 24, 25. So
Right.
here I am being slightly lower on him than what consensus is. And I'm like, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, this dude is, to me, like, he's going to be a good player. And the more you watch him, you're just like, oh, yeah, like that. Like, I could see him doing that. Okay. All right. I want more. Let's do it. So, but then again, part of the draft process and when you're ranking guys, is like, what does EJ Liddell's ceiling look like compared to some of these other guys? Like, am I going to take Jan Montero over EJ Liddell for a team like San Antonio or Chicago or Minnesota? Like, probably not, right? But there's going to be some team that maybe is in more of a rebuilding situation that's like, maybe we take the shot on a guy like Montero before Liddell because, his top end, we don't have the guard depth. We're rebuilding. Like, we can let this young kid develop. So I think it's all going to be situational, but I think wherever he goes, like ultimately he's going to be a guy that contributes. I'm not really, I don't have any doubts about that.
Yeah, it's really funny because I'm going to end up having him higher than a lot of other guys on my board, but it's not me thinking that those guys won't get selected ahead of him because, we know the draft is all about fit, but I think a guy like Liddell, the fit's really, really going to be important because some team has to have like a really specific plan next to him. Like one of my favorite projections for him is if he ended up in Minnesota, where it's like he's playing alongside potentially Karl Anthony Towns, where it's like a true center with size. Liddell can come in, also space the floor, stretch out the defense, and he can do a lot of special things with the ball in his hand. I did a deep dive on him, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to see the 3-point shot. I'm ready to see like the mid-range game, but he's a really underrated playmaker that I don't think gets talked enough about. Like he has some great vision when it comes to like enticing the defense to collapse on him, and he keeps his head up on a swivel and he can throw some bullet passes like for shooters across the court. Like he has a great skip pass. Like it is on the money. It's right in the shooter pocket. So I've been really intrigued watching him. I know we'll probably talk about his defense later because that's kind of the kicker. When you start buying into EJ Liddell and then you watch him defensively, you're like, okay, all right. Like I could see that. But Minnesota, like I think even Denver, like teams like that, where it's like they have an established center that you can bring EJ in to kind of give you another gadget like asset. I really do think like some team's going to buy. Some team's going to be like, yes, we have a great plan for this guy. He would fit in beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, if Chicago ends up in the position where they could draft him as a Bulls fan, like I would love that. Like in Arturas Karnisovas coming over from Denver, like he's a guy that is, I think that he fits the type of player that he kind of likes, like we'll talk about his versatility and all the things that he does. But I think that those, like you said, Minnesota, Denver, Chicago, like those are the situations that are going to give you the best return on investment for a guy like Liddell, because he's coming in not as this guy that he was at Ohio State that was like this first option on the team. He could be more of a role player, and I think it'll accentuate a lot of those strengths even more. Before we get into the specifics, I'm going to give you $10 imaginary money.
Okay. I like money, even if it's fake.
Yeah, it's fake. And you get to choose how you want to invest this money. Split up between EJ Liddell, Justin Lewis, and Trevion Williams.
Okay.
You can invest that 10 any way you want.
Wow. This is a good one. Thank you. Thanks for starting off my day with a real curveball. For people that don't know, I'm a very big Justin Lewis fan. I might be the CEO of that fan club. So I'd probably go $6 on EJ, $3 on Justin, and then Trevion can pass the ball, and I love the bigs that can pass, so I'll throw $1 there.
Okay,
it's a little sweetener. Right. What about yourself? If I threw that same question at you, give me that.
Yeah. I tried making this as hard on for me personally as I could, because these are two other prospects that I also love, and they're, I think, two prospects that are like two other prospects that guys are either like really high on or like completely like indifferent or out on.
Yeah.
I like all of these guys, and I think EJ I would give $4 to.
Okay.
I think he's probably the safest bet of the guys. I would give 3 to Justin Lewis, and I would give 3 to Trevion, because I am driving the Trevion Williams bus. And
I did not know that about you. Wow.
Oh my God, I love.
You're
Trevion
really
Williams,
holding out
man.
on me. You're keeping the secrets. I love it.
Yeah, you know what? I was gonna write about him one week at No Ceilings. I think it was right after I saw him live against Rutgers up close, and then I think Nick wrote about him, like put him on the schedule, like literally the day I started chopping up clips, and I was like, oh cool, I guess I'll come back to writing about Trevion. Touche, Nick, you got there first. All right,
classic Nick.
This one's on me for not using the time tree that we use to call guys out. I love Trevion. I think that another older guy. Love his passing, love his playmaking. I could see him just being super versatile. I think he's underrated as a defender, quick hands. Obviously, like, can he be in shape? What's he going to do guarding in space? All that. But this episode isn't about Trevion Williams and Justin Lewis. He could be, a Morris brother quite easily, I think, in the league. And I think that he has the potential to be more than that.
Right.
For those, we have, we're broadcasting live on YouTube as well. If, we have our friend Siddharth Kumar says, how do you feel about Liddell at 17 to the Rockets?
Yeah. Like, yes, I'm completely in, because that's an interesting one. Like, hypothetically, like, say Houston ends up with one of the top 3 guys. Obviously, I'm rooting for Chet just because of the Şengün Chet experience. Yes, but like,
same.
Even if they get one of those guys, like, I think EJ is still a great piece to add to that young roster, because he knows how to play. He's got that two-way versatility. He really can space the floor. I mean, if you're talking about him as like a rotation asset, like, yeah, that's a big boost for the Rockets. Those are the type of picks, if you're a rebuilding team, you want to keep adding guys like that, even if they're not supposed to be like positioned as starters. But I love EJ. Like, I'm excited to talk about him, because I finished up my deep dive on him today, and I was like, okay, like, he's the one guy, you hinted at it earlier, Corey. The more I look at my board, I get to his name, and I'm like, why am I not moving him up? Like, what is holding it up? And every time I move him up, and that's like, I'm at 15 now, and I just keep looking, and I'm like, why not? Like, someone's going to believe that that's a nice addition. Like, they're going to have a really strategic plan for him. And I'm just a big believer. I think people are going to get scared about his size. I know we're going to probably talk about that, but I like the way he plays. He understands he's going to be undersized, and he makes up for it in a number of different ways.
Yeah. So the one thing, we usually start with shooting, but I'm going to start it with his athleticism.
Yeah. Let's do it.
You look at him, right? You look at him on the surface. He looks like, I think he's solid. Like, I think he's just like a big bodied, like, he looks like a tight end. But I think some people might think he looks like he's got some pudge to him.
Yes.
But I think it's just his body type. I think he looks solid, and he's 6'7", right? On the surface, you're probably looking at him and you're like, he's not going to be this like athletic freak. He doesn't look like a Mare or, one of those type of guys. But I'm excited to use this term on, not just like a white shooter. Is he sneaky athletic to you?
Yes, 100%. Sneaky. Big man is sneaky athletic, and he is big, but it's like he's got vertical pop that you're not ready for until it comes, and you're like, whoa, where did that come? And then it's awesome. But he also can get lateral really quick. Like when he wants to get somewhere, he can move his feet. Like he's a dancing bear. He's got light feet. He really gets all over the place. That's what, like, yeah, he's 6'7", and everyone's going to see that right away without watching him and be like, ugh, an undersized power forward. Like, trust me, I get it. I'm guilty of it. It's my least favorite thing to evaluate of all time is the undersized guy. Cause I'm like, gosh, can you just be two inches taller, please? I would fall in love with you. But he really makes up for it because he understands how to use his body. He understands, like, I got to be quick. So his anticipation, like his instincts on both sides of the ball really jump out, but he can get up and he understands, like, how to throw his body around, how to kind of get into defenders. And also, like, it makes up for it. Like, even off the dribble, he'll give you a shoulder, like, shrug and kind of step back to create that space. He has a great awareness of, how to have that advantage against the defender or on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm a big EJ fan.
And he's like, he's fast. He's fast, like he's quick. He's fast. Like every way I look at him, like outside, like, yeah, I think that his size and like sometimes when he's in the midst of creating or attacking, like he doesn't have that like Anthony Edwards put it on your head type bounce, but like he's got a quick first jump. He comes out of nowhere, explosive, chase down. Like he's sneaky athletic in a way that I don't know if he'll get credit for, because I think people will look at him more so as like a ground bound, undersized, like Grant Williams type power forward. And I don't necessarily see that from him. Let's break down the shooting. Let's go there now. Because he shot it at 37% on like 4 attempts a game this year. What do you think about his shooting and how it'll translate to the league?
The pick and pop is going to be the biggest sell for him because he set some great screens and he can really shoot the shit out of the ball from deep. And it's not just like a couple feet beyond the arc. He had a couple threes this year that were like, screw you threes to the defense, where it was like 6 or 7 feet beyond the arc. And I was like, oh my gosh, off of catch and shoot. So he can get hot from outside. He's got a little bit of a line drive.
Yeah, he does.
Which is a little, it's weird, but it's like he can get takeover mode, like NBA Jam status. But like, I'm not a shot guru. I always feel like I have to say that, but it does seem like he has a little bit of a line drive, but it looks solid. The mid-range is where I fall in love with him because he has that, kind of feed him face up game where he can he has some shiftiness with the ball in his hands. Like his footwork is great. And he just falls in love. Like he can dribble and completely change direction for a fadeaway. And it's like the defense has no chance because it's just so sudden and it's his shot. And he knows, like, let me work to get to my spots. Like he has that awareness and understanding. So I think people are going to fall in love with the 3-point shot. I really think like the mid-range, the face-up game is really, really intriguing because he works to get through traffic too, and also understands like he has good touch around the basket. He's got some floaters too. So what about you, Corey? What do you think about the shot?
Yeah, well, so his shot is definitely flat, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it seems like he's shooting like almost on the way down. So I think that when you're talking about his mid-range shot, like it's not as important for him to get like a crazy amount of arc because he's not like sometimes it feels to me like from 3 he's trying to get the ball to the hoop, like because a lot of his misses are short. So maybe there will be some a little adjustment to the 3-point line in the NBA, the extra distance. But like you said, it's not like he didn't knock down shots beyond that. So it's not like I think it's a mirage and he's not actually a good shooter. Like I think he's going to be able to shoot it. And like you said, like he'll pick and pop all day. And when he does pick and pop, and like even when the shot's not there, like it opens up a ton of other stuff. Like you said, he lasers, some of these like cross court passes, and he's going to be deadly in the pick and pop. He with the mid range, he does a lot of turnarounds. He's got that fadeaway, and what I like is he shoots it like he'll take the fadeaway like off of the wrong foot, which always like kind of jumbles up the defense a little bit. So he like I was trying to figure out how to say this because even when he's short, like he's very consistent. The shot's flat. A lot of times it'll go in like back rim. but it's like consistent. I think he has really good aim.
Yeah.
Like he's like a marksman to where like he knows where to put the ball. So it's not like he has these misses where it's like clanking off the backboard or the side of the rim. Like he's very consistent in getting the ball to the right spots of the hoop, which gives me, kind of optimism that he's going to be a good shooter as well, because he's getting the ball to where it needs to go. And 37% on pretty good volume is not bad. So I'm bullish on him becoming a good shooter in the league, even if like, maybe it takes some adjustment from distance. And then, like you said, his ability to this is where his self creation, I think, is where he breads his butter, is in that mid post jab step, face up. If he goes to the post, he'll take that mid range shot, whether there's one guy there or two guys there, and he's not he's confident that he could finish even when the help comes. So sometimes does he settle for the turnaround, tough turnaround? Yeah, but that's his role at Ohio State. Like, I don't think that's his role in the NBA, or that he's going to have like a hefty shot diet of just like get on the block and go to work. Maybe if he goes to a rebuilding team, he'll get a lot of those opportunities. But if he goes to one of those teams we talked about earlier, like, he'll get those opportunities when they're opportunistic. And it's not going to be like he's going to work there so often that a team is going to be like, okay, we got to throw a double at him. Like, I think teams are going to be mostly in a situation where they're playing him straight up, So I think that his shot in that regard, like, even if it's a little line drivey, like, it's totally fine and workable. And I think with the right shooting coach, like, he'll get a little more arc, a little more elevation, and it'll be a process. And when he gets enough reps, like, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It is really fascinating, some of the stuff he does to create his shot, because it makes like no sense that sometimes you're just like, how does he get this shot off all the time? Because it's like you're saying, he goes off the wrong foot. He battles, like, and it's exactly like you said. He doesn't care and it's not like tunnel vision, but he's fine with multiple guys crashing on him, because he's like, cool, I'm bigger than you. I have more strength. And he goes up aggressive. He goes up strong, but he also shows touch while doing that. I was watching him and he just kept doing that turnaround. And I was like, all right, show me something else. And then finally he was like off the dribble spin and then off the glass, like runner. And it was like backboard swish. And I was like, that was beautiful. Like, and I was just like, how did he make that shot? So it just doesn't make sense at times, but you love everything you're seeing. So yeah, I'm like you. The shot could get flat, but he does have a lot of times too where it's like the aim, like you're saying, is right on, and he has that shooter's role. He really just keeps impressing you the more and more you watch him.
Yeah, he's just so solid everywhere, and I know that could be boring, but like, I'm just, every time I watch him, I'm like, this is a guy that's going to play in the league for a long time on a lot of good teams. And as a self-creator, he got to do that a lot at Ohio State. And, I think that he's probably an underrated ball handler. He's not like super shifty by any means. But like, he knows how to play with pace with the ball in his hands. And like, even when a guy beats him to a spot, like, he does these crafty little things. And like you said, he has good footwork. Like, he'll put his shoulder into the defender to create a little bit of space and then roll off of him with a spin move to change direction. So like, even if he's not getting the defender to lean one way with the handle, he is getting them to having to change directions. And he's not, predictable with what he's doing, because he can get to those spots. And once he gets you to 15 feet, he can just get a shot off, even if it's a tough one. He's willing to put the shot up. So he's not predictable in that way, which I like. And I think in the NBA, where there's more space, there's going to be less help crashing, and that's going to be a part of his game that I think will shine in the NBA, especially when he's like getting a kick off, like a swing, or second side, like skip, and now he can attack a closeout or whatever. I think that this is where you're going to see a lot of like, oh, I didn't know he really had that in his bag too much, like, show up at the next level.
He's just solid, like you said. And I think, a weird hot take is like, if you're evaluating these guys and you're watching highlights and you can't find yourself buying into Keegan Murray. I could see you struggling to buy into EJ Liddell too, because they're very similar with where it's like they will go to work. Like they will be patient and get to where they want to get. And they'll back you down and wait for that opening for you to make that first mistake. And they will take advantage of that opening. Like EJ is strategic with everything he does. He can pick and pop, and then he can put the ball on the ground 4 times and from the perimeter, and all of a sudden he's shooting a little jump hook. And you're like, how the heck did that happen? And he's like, well, I'm 240 pounds and I'm bigger than you. I know I can be patient and get there. But his footwork really stands out. And then if he does that and you collapse on him the double, he also has the floor awareness to be like, cool, I'm kicking it out. It's a wide open 3 for my teammate. He just is really solid, like you're saying. And this is why I keep moving him up, because I'm like, this guy's going to play a long time in this league. Like he just does too many things that he's going to impact the game. And then, I mean, we're just talking about his offense. We haven't even gotten to the defense where it's like, oh, he's incredible defensively too. So yeah, that's why I'm just saying, like, these are the guys that I buy in late, because I'm like, I'm going to move him up my board. He might get drafted later, but I'm believing that EJ Liddell is going to have a long career in the NBA.
Yeah. And like you said, I want to talk about his passing a little bit, because like you said, like he shows these flashes. He averaged 2.5 assists a game, where, you know, he'll get the ball and he's just like, he's got those long arms. He'll put the ball 2 hands over his head and just fire a pass across the court right to the shooting pocket. You know, he's not afraid to kick out of a double team. I do think sometimes, and again, he was the number 1 option, so go get a bucket. He was like a little slow to react to the double coming, and like, not that it's hard to say, because he's not selfish. He's not unwilling to pass the ball, but there were just times where it was like in college, he's like, I could still get this shot up and right. Where at like the next level, like if that comes, I think it's going to be harder for him to do that against NBA players. So I don't know if that was just him actively being like, I've been in college for a few years. I'm stronger than you. Like I got the length. I know I can make this shot. I've been working on it. So we'll see. But he can lead the break, grab and go, and like actually look fluid in the open court, making passes. The one thing I wanted to see more of, and it's because, you know, it's college, he's much more prone to popping than rolling. You know, most of the times when he'd roll, and I absolutely love how deadly this set was. Like Ohio State ran this horn set with Branham in the corner and Liddell at one of the elbows. And they'd be on the weak side, and Liddell would just he would just set a screen for Branham to come off, you know, and catch a little Rip Hamilton mid-range shot. And if they overplayed him because he's deadly there, like Liddell would roll to the hoop and just slam it down. Like, so simple, so effective. But for the most part, like if he was running a high ball screen, it was to pop to the 3-point line. I do wish we saw a little bit of him like popping to the free throw line so he could make plays out of the short roll, because I think that's going to be something that he can do at the next level that we didn't get to see a lot of at Ohio State. You know, he didn't get to be the playmaker I think he's going to be capable of being, because with all of the space in the NBA, like imagine him just getting downhill, looking to attack the basket, and then seeing shooters like in the weak side corner. Like that's going to be easy money for him, I think. But I wish that we got to see more of it.
Yeah, I agree, because like you're saying, if you got him elbow extended, like my goodness, because he just has that quick first step, and his jab step is outstanding, because he'll use it to get you to like just slightly go back, and he's like, cool, mid-range, thank you, like wide open shot. And he understands like all he needs to use is his footwork to kind of get that defender to bite. But he also, like you're saying, like if they put him at the elbow and let him almost kind of make plays, he can either put the ball on the ground with his first step and use his power to get to the basket. He can finish with touch. He's got the floor awareness to drive and kick, and he also can pull it from mid-range. So I'm like you. I would love to see him be more of a roll guy, because something that stood out to me too, he's really good at sealing. So like when he gets that below the basket and gets a defender on him, like no one's moving him. He just gets a grasp of you, and he's like, just throw it over the top. I got it. And then he can get up quick. Like despite his weight and size, he can get up quick and finish with 2-hand slams with power. So I'm like you, there's definitely a lot of tools and what he can do already with like his versatility offensively that you get really intrigued. But I still think there's there's some more stuff that's waiting to get unlocked.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to everybody watching live, commenting. Will Lindsay says, what do you think of the fair ceiling for Liddell is? We'll get into that a little later. He also loves the idea of him in Portland, and I think he'd be a great guy, for them to draft to pair up with Dame. Sergeant Pepper says EJ Liddell equals right-handed Randall ? Which I don't entirely hate, but we'll get to comps later on. So Rucker, start thinking of that if you haven't prepared a comp.
I have some comps. I did my homework, but
okay.
Randall.
I also love his passing when he's at the top of the arc and he's like just running high-low, like the touch to get it like over the defense, right where the big needs it so he can go straight up. Let's talk about his finishing. What did you think about him finishing at the rim, either out of the post or when he was attacking?
I'm good with it. Because there's just touch. Like there's really underrated touch and feel on everything. Like he can finish with power through contact. He can finish with his left hand with little baby hooks. What really impressed me is if you go watch, I think it was at Michigan. He went up against Moussa Diabate a lot, and he had him in a torture chamber. Like he hit him once with like a step through and one like off the glass runner, and then the next time came down and like hit one of his teammates with like he pump faked him, had him in the air, then he like threw his shoulder into him again, and then hit a fadeaway. And then he had somebody else like on a hook. I was just like, oh man, my man's going to work right now. Like he's just showing everything. So I think he's got some creativity because he'll showcase that he can come through the lane and finish with touch with a little baby hook. And then the next time he'll come through and be like, all right, time to go to the fadeaway. And he hits that a couple times. And then he can have the step through and finish through contact or finish with some touch. So I think that's another area that people are going to get a little nervous about his size, but he has the touch and like almost the versatility with his feel to kind of hide that in a weird way. And I know saying hiding it is strange to some, but I do think if you don't have that elite size, you got to be good other places and you got to stand out. And I think that's where he understands, like, I can use my strength to kind of make up for it. Because the counter the fadeaway is beautiful and he knows exactly where to get. And it's like, you see it coming. It's like a slow motion death every single time. And I've came away intrigued. And he also has that sneaky pop, like we talked about, where he can finish with power and dunk on some people.
Yeah. Offensive rebounds. He's up quick, like quick first jump or second jump. Then I'm not worried about him at all. Like you said, the touch, especially in the post, like he's big enough to create space. He's got the length to shoot over. You know, when I watched the Duke game, there are some times that like Mark Williams, he struggled attacking like off drives, but Mark Williams is a phenomenal defender. Yes. So, it's saying that he struggled there is not anything, I think, to dismiss him all of a sudden in that regard, because I think he'll learn the more he gets to play against guys who are bigger and more athletic. Because, most of the guys he went up against, he's not having the opportunity to in real time get reps against like big time rim protectors every night. Like most of the time he's probably going to be stronger and more athletic than the guys in college that he's manning up with. So when he does have that opportunity, he'll start being like, all right, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Our guy Rashad Phillips came on to talk about Jaden Hardy, and he was like, I was speaking to Trae Young and I told him, like, it's kind of like a pitcher in baseball. Like, you got to go around the league one time so you start figuring out everybody's tendencies. And then once you realize tendencies, you could start to figure out and get to, okay, I can't drive right on this guy because he's going to cut it off and send my shit into the stands. Like, he'll start realizing that, EJ Liddell, because his IQ is pretty high for a big. Let's get to the defense.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
About damn time.
No, let's get to that defense, man. Because, I think I'm more like the reason I'm looking at my board and going, what am I doing here? Why is he the default? Let me just put this guy ahead of him. The defense is the reason I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like I should just go reevaluate how I'm ranking this guy. Obviously, he made a huge leap as a rim protector this year. And those block numbers, nothing to sneeze at. I mean, 2.6 blocks a game is pretty legit. He had multiple games over 5 blocks, even more over 4. So this is a guy who it's not like when you watch him, it's not like it was a fluke that he just had this year. You could tell the game was pretty slow for him, that he could anticipate when he needed to go help over. Like his weak side help, I thought was just like so impressive. It was an absolute joy to watch.
He had a block against Wisconsin that Johnny Davis drove baseline and he was at the elbow and he like read the whole play before Johnny got to like his second dribble and just collapsed like a freight train from the elbow and literally just like palmed the ball on the backboard. It was like one of those plays that you're just like, oh my gosh, that's one of the most impressive blocks I've seen in a minute. It is incredible, his awareness, his shot blocking ability at that size, at that frame. I mean, if you go look at the advanced numbers, he's up there with Chet, and he's doing it at 6'7" compared to Chet at 7 foot, which, in case anyone hasn't heard, Chet Holmgren is skinny, but that's for another day. But, you know, EJ just, it's not just like he's the rim protector now. It's just his anticipation and awareness on the court. Like he reads and dissects plays before they even happen. He understands where to put himself. He's really good in help defense. And he's got violent hands too. Like if people are driving, he understands like he can get his hand in there and he digs and makes a lot of strips and stuff. So I watched his film. I did the offense. I did his passing, and then I was like, okay, I'm in. And then I was like, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be falling in love right after this defense. And that's exactly what happened. I watched his defense. I was like, man, this guy can move for his size. Like
he moves.
He does a great job of moving his feet and staying with guards. And then he's got that nastiness with that chase down ability.
The chase down is crazy.
Oh, it's amazing because you said it earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. I saw a couple plays where like 3 guys were ahead of him on a fast break, and he literally sprinted up the court and chased down block, like hit it into the 5th row. Like he can move. Like
he moves.
Don't let 6'7", 240 scare you. EJ can move and he gets going in a hurry. It's a freight train.
Yeah. I like the chase downs might be my favorite part of his game. Like it's definitely not the part of his game that happens the most regularly, but when he gets going, and he's got the momentum, like juggernaut style, straight line. And like, you just see the play happening in slow motion. Like the guard thinks he's just going to calmly put it off the glass for an easy layup. And that thing just gets pinned to the backboard. And again, like you don't expect it. You don't expect it because he's not playing a game that's based around athleticism, but he has athleticism to bring out every once in a while when he needs to. That makes you just go, oh shit. Yeah, I forgot about that. Let's go. And then out on the perimeter, and this is, I think, the most important thing for him. He moves. Like he switches his stance. He could stay with guards. He gets long, and he's got the body that like you're not gonna move him off his spot. And when he's hip to hip with you, like he's almost dictating sometimes where the ball handler can go because he's strong enough to just actually, you know, stay with you and not get moved. And he's dictating the whole play. So I think that when you look at it in an NBA context, like this is a guy that I'm not afraid if a guard gets switched onto him that he can't stay with him. Like, you know, when I talk about like a guy like Trevion Williams, right? I'm a little bit scared of like, can Trevion consistently switch out and guard some of these guards? I think that Liddell is going to be able to do that. And that's why, you know, this is a guy that I think is going to be taken somewhere in like late lottery to, you know, maybe early 20s. But my goodness, like that package, he's going to be able to guard guards. He's going to be able to stick the perimeter. And I think guard, you know, as best as somebody can. And obviously I'm talking about when he's developed a little bit, not his rookie year, but I think he's going to be able to guard your like perimeter scorers, you know, the Lukas, the Kawhi. Like, I think you could throw him on those guys and be like, just try to make his life hard. You know what I mean? And even if he doesn't shut them down, I think he's just got the wherewithal to kind of stick with some of those bigger wings, the Pascal Siakams, guys like that. And then he's strong enough that, like, yeah, he's probably, if you have Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic, right? Like, he's probably not going to be able to check them in the post. Like, spoiler alert, like, fucking nobody in the draft is. Jalen Duren's not covering Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid either. So, you know, that's my favorite trope, right? But he's strong enough that he'll bang, he'll body, and he's gonna make you work to get it going in the post as well. So, defensively, like, I'm like, yeah, like, he's not undersized. To me, he's not undersized. Is what I'm trying to say. Where maybe on offense you could be like, all right, I wish you had a little bit more size on the offensive end, but I think he's perfectly capable at his height, with his length, with his body type, to guard, because he just moves so damn well for a guy his size.
Yeah, I went into his defensive film, and the shot blocking immediately impressed me. And then I got to more focusing on like his perimeter stuff, and I was just ready to get hurt. Like, you know, it's the Office gift. Like, okay, I'm ready to get hurt again.
Yeah.
And he had a couple, like, against smaller guards where he slid and held his own. And I was just like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, I was just like, this is incredible. Like, this makes no sense. And he's going to be fine to hold his own. I remember that Duke game you're talking about. Like, Paulo went at him in the post, and Paulo was trying to bang up against him. He was like, do you know how big I am? Like, you're not going anywhere. And then, like, Paulo tried to hit him with a couple up unders. He stood his ground. He didn't bite for it. And then Paulo tried to hit a fadeaway on him, and he blocked it right in his face. So he's going to be fine. He's this great shot blocker, but he's not eager to block everything in the world. He welcomes, like, the patience. He's going to be understanding. He's not going to try to just be like, I have to block everything. Like, he waits. He goes straight up when he wants. Now, going and doing that in the NBA is going to be another level than it is for every shot blocker, because they all got their own bag of tricks and to get you in foul trouble. And it's going to be a rude awakening for any rookie. But I think EJ is going to be that guy where you're spot on about it, Corey. You're saying, like, if he gets switched onto a guy, I'm not going to be holding my breath like, oh no, here we go. I think he's going to do a respectable job where it's like, you can keep him out there. He's not going to be this guy where it's like they're hunting EJ Liddell every single time, because he also has, like, if a guard gets past him, he can catch up and have his body right on him. And then he feels it out where, like, the moment the guard's going up, he throws it into the third row. Like, he understands how to have that recovery speed and have that chase down block like we're talking about. So, yeah, I think EJ will be fine. I just kept watching him and just kept checking boxes. Like, just like, yep. Like, I'm a fan. I'm impressed.
Yeah, he's to me, he's like a modern 4. Like, you know, he's the big wing that you want, and it's different because then you also have that type that's like the Jeremy Suhan, who I know you're going to be writing about this week at No Ceilings. You have, like, Tari Eason, who's another guy. Like, they all kind of play the same position. They're all a little bit different, but they all in their own ways represent, like, what the modern 4 looks like. And I think, again, like, I think some people might think EJ Liddell is kind of like old school big, but he's got this new school element to him that I think is getting underrated. He hits the boards. Like, he'll end plays. He's good at boxing out. You know, he's always, like, active. He's making, like, tap outs for extra possessions on the offensive glass. Like, I just, like, if from a coach's perspective, like, this is a guy you want to ride with, because, you know, like, not going to make a ton of mistakes. And he does a lot of the little things, and then you can count on him to, you know, if you need to, like, go create some offense here and there. And again, like, is he going to do that in the NBA? Hopefully not a ton. Like, I think if EJ Liddell's your number 1 option in the NBA, you're probably in a little bit of trouble. You're probably going to be in the Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson sweepstakes. But, you know, I think that he's a guy, like, he's just going to be able to play in a ton of big situations because he's versatile enough to guard, however, like, pick and roll. Like, he could play in a drop. You know, he could hard hedge and blitz you. And he could switch. Like, he could just do whatever you need. You know what I mean? Alec Petrovich says, I think Liddell will be able to fill a Jay Crowder type of role, but will add more rim protection than Crowder does. And I think that's kind of what we're saying here. Like he does a lot of the things that Crowder does at that spot. Crowder's probably going to be a better shooter, I think at volume especially, but I think Alex does a good job saying that's the kind of role for him. So shout out to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, shout out chat. I love these comments. These are amazing. No, I could see the Crowder vibes, especially like a bigger, more power forward, probably late career Crowder, where he is right now. But I definitely could see that vibes because that's kind of what you're thinking Liddell's going to be, is like this floor spacing, low maintenance guy that can really make an impact on both sides of the ball. So that's a good one. I like that.
It's a little unorthodox, but I like it because it's similar roles. And, I think EJ is probably going to be able to guard up a little bit because he's got that strong frame, good core, like big legged, so maybe if you put him down low, I think he'd handle that a little bit better than Jay Crowder has throughout his career. And Jay's probably early in his career a little bit better at guarding the perimeter, even though I think EJ Liddell, like I said, is like the way he switches his stance, moves his feet, slides his feet, like big time, but versatile enough that you could, bring him up in the same sentence as a guy like Jay Crowder, which is definitely intriguing. If you're buying stock in EJ Liddell, who may you have bought stock in previously?
I feel like
Sergeant Pepper already took right-handed Randall, so don't go stealing Sergeant Pepper's.
Oh, does this have to be someone in this class, or can I give a pro comparison?
This is a pro comparison.
Oh, okay. I did some homework, Corey, so you're going to be impressed with my preparation because getting on the Draftdaq is a big deal. I gotta bring my A game. So I was fascinated about this. Like I always am kind of a historian with the draft, and I kind of wanted to go back and look, and I was like, how many under 6'10" power forwards have kind of stuck around? And I just kept looking back. I was like, what's the big names that jump out at me? I went back down a rabbit hole. I tried to do first rounders only, but then I got to one name that I think is probably EJ's best pro comparison. And some people might guess it, but his numbers are almost the same as this guy coming out of college, and they were both juniors. So I'll tell him, and then I'll go down the couple lists. So this guy was 6'8", 245 coming out of college. He averaged 19.6 points, 13.3 rebounds, 2.3 blocks, shooting splits of 57, 35, 62, and he went 47th in the NBA draft. Yes, you can. In 2006.
Was Paul Millsap?
Yes, Paul Millsap. Very good, Corey.
Yeah.
And then everyone else I found, because I do think the Paul Millsap one's going to be the best, but everyone else I found, I was kind of intrigued. Patrick Patterson in 2010 went 14th. Yep. He was 6'9", 235. He averaged 14, 7, and 1.3 blocks in college. Also a junior. Montrezl Harrell went in the second round, 32nd. He was a junior, 6'8", 235. PJ Washington, little skinnier version, but 6'8", 228. He was a sophomore. That's the only sophomore. And then I got Grant Williams, and I threw Brandon Clark in there as a kicker. But they were both first round picks. So I would probably say if you're watching young Paul Millsap, you're probably thinking that's maybe the vibe. Now, I think EJ, like, even though I just read Paul's Millsap stats in college, I still think EJ might be a little bit better of a defender coming out, just because of like the awareness and what he can do where it comes to that mobility. But I do think that's probably one of the better, guys to kind of look at and be like, that's the type of impact he could have early on. So there you go. I did some homework for Mr. Corey.
You went balls deep into that, because Paul Millsap is the guy that I have in mind. He's, when we were talking about spots and you mentioned Denver, and I kind of hinted at it when I said, the guy in Chicago, it seems like the type of player he'd like because, he was in Denver at that time. It's just by watching it, like, you don't have to look at the numbers, just even stylistically, they just look so similar. Millsap was a guy who ended up shooting the ball super well, turned into an all-star, if I'm not mistaken, and just became this versatile, like Swiss Army knife defender. throughout his time in Atlanta and then Denver. So and that's why I think like for the Bulls, like that's what the Bulls need. Like the Bulls need a guy like that. Minnesota has, a lot of options in their front court, I think.
Right.
But he fits really well with Cat. So I love that comp. Watching him from this class specifically, he also kind of reminded me, and it made me like try to envision what this player would look like if he stayed in college for 3 years instead of being a potential number 1 overall pick. He's like almost like a little bit more polished version, just shorter, of Jabari this year. Like Jabari, obviously the shooting was much smoother, but they loved that little face up, the little jab step into a mid-range shot. Not a ton of like rolling to the rim, more so just like popping out. I think the playmaking stuff where like both showed like flashes of how they are going to make passes at the next level. Obviously Jabari, just his height, the fact that he had like historical shooting season at his height. But playing with the ball in their hands, I'm like thinking like, wow, like what if Jabari continued to work on his body and stayed in college for another 2 years? Like what the fuck would he be doing in this competition? And I also think it bodes well looking at his, more for his pro prospects. Again, just like, oh yeah, like fucking Jabari, like he has so much to work with that it's like all this raw potential that if, EJ in his finishing, like he was a much better finisher this year than around the hoop than Jabari, but like in a couple of years, like man, like imagine Jabari in a couple of years against college competition, and like looking at that, like I'm seeing flashes of like, wow, like EJ Liddell made me realize how much scarier Jabari could possibly get in a couple of years down the line, which is a curveball I didn't expect to be feeling while I was watching his film.
Yeah, that's a good one. I thought you were going to go Paulo there, and then you threw the Jabari, and I was like, whoa, okay. But the more you talked it out and the more I was thinking about it, I was like, wait, I actually kind of see that, just because like they have that desire to pop. They also have the footwork in the mid-range like you're talking about. And yeah, if guys had to stay multiple years, the draft classes would be just so nuclear, like stacked every year.
Ridiculous.
So amazing. My still favorite is like Michael Jordan was a junior. So I just keep backing, like, imagine those days. But yeah, I just think I really like, you even look at the numbers offensively, like the synergy numbers, like EJ's solid everywhere. Like he's 88th percentile on offense, 85th spot up. I've talked about it with Nathan on like Draft Deeper. When it's college guys and you get above that like 60 percentile, that's a big number. So like when you're in the 80s and stuff, like that's ridiculous. He's 88th. Jabari was 85th when it comes to overall offense. So Paulo was 75th. So it just shows you like kind of how impressive that Liddell's been all year. And I still think like you're talking about like, oh, if he went to Chicago, what a get that would be for them. Yeah. I'm even thinking like a crazy one would be like, depending on what happens with OKC at the top, like maybe with their second pick, they would add like EJ Liddell. Like Indiana could be in the same boat. You never know what's going to happen with the lottery, but it's one of those, like if you walked with a shiny new prize in the top 10, and then all of a sudden you added EJ Liddell as a kicker. We talked about Portland earlier as well. That'd be really exciting. That would be getting a heck of a basketball player to help those teams like kind of push the needle forward. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and you've been a big proponent that OKC, it's time for them to take the needle forward. Maybe it says that we saw the tweet that says maybe they're actually thinking about it. So we'll see, but I
just don't want another guard. Can we not? Like everyone wants Jaden Ivey to go there, and I'm like, are we really ready for this headache that we're going to create? So I get it if he's on the board and he's the best player available, but I also am like, were we just going to roll out that we're going to be the Phoenix Suns the year they tried to have like Dragic and Isaiah Thomas and Eric Bledsoe?
That was a fun year, though. You got to admit that was a fun
experiment.
Year. It was a fun experiment. Things did, went south for a while after they got rid of it. All right, you got big shoes to fill here in this next segment because this is Albert's time to shine on the show. Shout out, Albert. We'll be excited to have you back.
I don't know what curveball's coming. Hit me.
You're gonna have to sell me this pen on EJ Liddell.
A
lot of pressure.
Yeah, here we go. Do you have that? Does your team have nastiness in the paint? Do they have a smart basketball player that can score at 3 levels? Your answer is probably no. So why don't you take EJ Liddell? A big guy that moves like a wing, and the defensive instincts, the feel for the game on both sides of the ball, which is a big deal. And I think still the upside. Like, I think his handle is solid. I still have seen some flashes where I'm like, there's something that's going to be unlocked there. As good as his footwork is, I think he's got more levels to unlock. I think this is a guy that's going to play 12 years in the league. Mm-hmm. There's my sell the pen. I tried to pull the end of Wolf of Wall Street when he's just like, why don't you write your name down? That's what I was trying to do. Do you have nastiness in the paint? But yeah, there you go. I'm a big believer of EJ. I think someone's going to be really smart and take him a little earlier than we're ready for, but I like him.
All right. So Will Lindsay earlier asked us in the chat,
yes,
do we think a fair ceiling for Liddell is? Now we gave some comps, are we thinking that Liddell is a guy that has a chance to kind of do the Paul Millsap thing where he is an all-star for a couple of years, and that's he has the potential to top out that way? Do we think he's more in the vein of Grant Williams, where he's just like, he puts it together and he's this like awesome bench big that could just fit into multiple lineups and play up and down? Where are we at on the spectrum of Grant Williams to Paul Millsap?
Oh man, these are always tough because you really have to check your ego at the door, and you're like, okay, do you really want to go out there and get remembered by everyone in the group chat? Shout out everyone on YouTube for listening. I'm not there on the all-star yet, but I do think the Paul Millsap route is legit. I think that's realistic for his ceiling. Like, I could see having EJ Liddell down the road. Someone's like, damn, that's a nice piece to have. Like, if EJ was one of your complementary pieces and he's rolling, that's a damn good team. Like, if you had a couple stars or offensive guys and EJ's like your sweetener, that's a really fun core. But I still think his most important path or trajectory to getting early success in his career need to go to a team that has like a center next to him. Like, say Mark Williams and EJ Liddell ended up together. I'd be like, that's a great addition, because like EJ doesn't have to do everything. He'd be playing against this or with this defensive minded center. I just think like if he goes somewhere where, like, we're talking Denver, Minnesota, where they have like that center that's set, and he can kind of be that early rotation asset that comes in and gives you another weapon or a wrinkle in that offense. Like, yeah, I could see you hitting gold on EJ Liddell. What about you, Corey?
Like, playing next to Cat, just to piggyback off that, like Cat stretching out the 3-point line, it lets EJ stick to what he feels comfortable with, like operating with the ball in his hands, on the block or in the mid range. Again, like Cat could play down there too, so he could stretch that out for Cat. Like that's interchangeable. Don't sleep on San Antonio if he drops. Don't sleep on that. And any of the little things that need to be fixed with the jump shot, so he could add that extra distance, not make it so line drivey. Working with Chip England, I think that would be frightening. But I definitely think he's not on the spectrum of Grant Williams, who, I wasn't really high on in the draft. I think he's probably lived up to my expectations in Boston, because he's definitely a good role player that teams should want. I think this year he's really taken a nice leap forward. But I think that EJ has more to that. Again, the Paul Millsap thing, like, I wonder if all-star Paul Millsap was just like time machined into 2022 NBA, if he'd still have been selected as an all-star.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing, because I've talked about I'm sorry, guys. I've talked about the fan voting for the All-Star game, and I'm not a big fan of it. No pun intended. But I don't think like guys like this are going to be those all-star picks. And the Paul Millsap year where it was like Atlanta's entire team or starting five was like named as all-stars. Like, yeah, that was a cool thing, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So, and it's not like saying that's a bad thing if we're saying, oh, he might not ever make an all-star game. It's like, well, guys don't make all-star games that play forever. Mike Conley like didn't forever. Like, guys could be really big additions to their teams. And I think EJ will be on that, that path where he could just be a heck of an asset.
Yeah, I agree. I think if he made an all-star team, it would very much so be like a down year in the NBA, like more so than EJ having like this monster, like 24, 12 and 5, like LaMarcus Aldridge type season. Like,
right.
It would be a weird circumstance where we look back and we're like, all right, that was a weird thing that happened. Right. All right. Any other points that you want to hit on EJ or did we hit it all?
I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, we went an hour deep.
Yeah. I mean, it's just fun. I really do like it. He's so weird because everything that you watch, you're like, this shouldn't be selling me. Like, and then you just keep watching and you're like, I'm in. Like, it's just like, I don't know why, but I'm in. And he does some stuff that you just can't explain. But I really do believe, like, I could see some team trading up for him, like a playoff team that's like, this is a missing ingredient. Like, I just keep looking at teams like Milwaukee or Memphis. Memphis will do it to piss us off. But like
well, how many picks do they have now?
Well, they got what, 3 still? No, 2. Oh, so they only have 2.
Well, does the third one have to get like settled based on how the lottery results shake out? Like, is that one of those situations?
Yeah, I think it's with Portland. So it's going. So it's 11 to 30 protect. Oh gosh, guys, I don't want to do the math right now.
It's a whole thing. That's for another episode.
Sorry, guys in the comments, but like. Someone in the chat earlier, like Houston, like, yeah, Houston be a great place like that. That's just like a smart team's going to be like, Hooper, give him to us. We'll figure it out down the road, and he's going to help us with the rebuilding process and get us in the right direction. And maybe Sam Presti's like foaming at the mouth right now to get EJ Liddell at the wrinkle.
Before we let you do your thing where you plug everything. Savage NYC in the chat asked us what our thoughts on Jalen Williams of Arkansas are. So I'll let you give your thoughts on Jalen.
Really deep in my feelings.
Yeah,
if you had
I know.
The Santa Clara one.
Then this would have been a 2-hour episode because
I would have flipped my desk right now. I'd been like, let's talk. Jalen Williams, Arkansas. Has he officially declared? I don't think so.
I know that ESPN used him in the graphic for next season. Arkansas potentially coming in ranked number 1 at some point.
Okay. So that's my point with him is like, I sort of want him to go test the waters to get feedback. If he doesn't, I understand why. I think he could skyrocket if he goes back. And like this was before like Arkansas is having this late rush of recruits that they're going to be like stacked. But I really like Jalen. I think he had a really strong stretch this year where it's like the confidence was really kicking in. He looks like he could be one of those playmaking bigs that can have some touch. But if he takes another step forward, he could really soar up some boards. Now he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to work his ass off. But he's going to have a team that's ready to roll with Arkansas this year. So I like his game a lot. It's just one of those situations where it's like I'm not rooting against any guy, but I think he can make a lot of money if he goes back for another year. Like I think if he came out right now, he might be this like, I hate the term pre-draft, but he might be like this late first round pre-draft guy for a team. That they're like, okay, he's not ready, but let's develop him for a year. If he goes back, he could just really go up boards in a hurry. So I'm rooting for him to go back because I believe in his upside and his talent. And I just think another year could do wonders. Are you there with him, Corey, or are you kind of a little bit more outish?
Well, I want him to go back too. And normally, in most circumstances, I would say that he should test the waters, and I think a team would take him in the second round, and like he should go under most circumstances.
Yes.
But the recruiting class that Arkansas has coming into the year, and the amount of, I think, national attention that they're going to get, I think that it's actually going to be in his best interest if he wants to play his way into the first round to go back next year. Cause I think that it's actually a realistic possibility. Cause most of the time I think guys in like his situation to where like, they had a little tournament run. So he started getting like a little bit more national attention, even though he was a guy that a lot of people deep in draft Twitter, like did have a thing for. It would be like, all right, you go back and then you kind of lose the momentum you had. You never regain that same hype and that same national attention. But I think next year with the class, as long as all of those guys don't completely shit the bed, like I think they're going to get a ton of national attention. They'll have like another tournament run, and he'll actually be a guy that teams are and fans are like, all right, this Jalen Williams guy, like I'm ready to do it with him, and maybe late first, like 20 to 30, somewhere in that range. I think maybe he could play his way into. And if he starts like shooting at volume or something, then like you add in that with like the playmaking stuff that he does, and who knows, maybe you're talking about a guy who is potentially like a late lottery guy if all goes well.
I think his situation, just to end up on this, is like really similar to what Nicholas Claxton was going through at Georgia. He had that second year where it kind of like got the attention of NBA scouts and he was buzzing, and everyone thought he was going to go back and just like skyrocket up boards. And he ended up keeping his name in, and everyone was like, whoa, okay. And I think it was after he had like an impressive combine, if I'm remembering this correctly, but he ended up going 31st. So I think Jalen's in that same situation, and Claxton still looks like he's going to be an intriguing talent moving forward in the NBA. But I think Jalen's the same story. Like there's too much like benefits if he goes back, in my opinion. I think he could just really, like you're saying, they're going to be on national TV all the time, the spotlight. If he starts clicking and all of a sudden they have a deep tournament run, like Jalen Williams could be roaring up draft boards. So I'm rooting for him to go back because I think there's a lot of, benefits or pluses for him, for his stock. And I'm rooting for every guy to succeed.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to end the episode. Thank you to everybody who watched live. Thanks to everybody who participated in the chat. Thank you for everybody who is listening on Apple and Spotify. Thank you to Tyler Rucker of No Ceilings and Backcourt Violation for filling in for Albert today. Do your thing where you plug away, because you're the best of the crew.
No, I mean, I'm at NoCeilingsNBA.com. Tomorrow I will have a piece on Jeremy Sohan coming up. Pretty pumped about that one. And I'm at Backcourt V, like Corey said. We're going to have some more stuff on the No Ceilings TV YouTube channel, some player highlights this year. And I think me and Corey might be brewing up some special projects for that. So everyone might want to be watching out carefully. But thanks, Corey, for having me on,
very
man.
Soon.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, look, anytime we need, Albert's out with an injury or, in his flu game type situation, we got to get you to pop in and help out. Next man up mentality, like we said. So, thank you for filling in. And you know what, even though you're on the West Coast, normally I got to do the late night East Coast recording thing. And now I feel like I have the whole day ahead of me after recording the episode. So this was wonderful. But make sure that if you haven't yet, and if you're listening at this point, you're probably subscribed to the show already. Subscribe to the Draftdaq NBA Draft Podcast. Leave us a review if your heart desires. I think that would be dope. Subscribe to the NBA Draft Dude YouTube. Follow me at Corey Tulaba on Twitter. And I think that's all I have to plug right now. Obviously, NoCeilingsNBA.com. You have no excuse not to subscribe to that for free. It's draft season. Things are going to heat up. We're writing every day, Monday through Friday, for free, right to your inbox. It's like nobody's done draft content like us. I keep thinking, you're the meme master. We got to pull the clip from He Got Game where they're going through the starting lineup. and like the last section where they're like, he's just like, we're Lincoln High School. Nobody's fucking with us. Like that's how I feel about our No Ceilings draft coverage right now. We've been doing stuff unlike anybody else on the internet. And, you know, I think that we try to remain humble, but as far as if you're out there, anybody on the team listening, you guys have all been doing a phenomenal job of making this thing what it has turned into. So
very proud of you guys. I know me and Corey are.
Yeah, so hit up No Ceilings NBA if you haven't. And the cool thing is you can go back, just hit the search bar and like go back through the entire library of stuff that we've written. The whole team, just phenomenal pieces about I more prospects that I can count. There are probably prospects that have been written about that I'm just like, I don't even know who that is. Like, and I'm pretty deep into the draft world. So it's a great resource. And I mean, it's only April 13th right now as of recording. So we got 2 more months of banging out amazing content for you. We will be back on the Draftdaq next week. And that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you for rocking with us. We out. Peace.